We observe a cameraman taking shots of two models in a studio at the start of the movie. After finishing her work, one of the models returns home, and when the other female departs, the cameraman takes her hostage. Also, he knocks the girl out, and when she wakes up, she discovers that she is bound. The youngster was terrified and kept pleading with the videographer to please leave me, but he ignored her. Then he slices the girl's throat while placing a box with someone's ashes next to her. During that time, his blood began to stream into the burning ashes. As the cameraman's secretary arrives in the morning, as she turns around, she discovers the girl's corpse that the cameraman had killed. When she discovers her employer dead, she calls the police. It is discovered after an investigation that the cameraman killed the girl, but who actually killed the cameraman was just a secret. When they focus on the throat of the cameraman, on it, there were bite marks. It appeared as though someone had eaten his flesh when I looked at his corpse. Following this, the narrative shows two news reporter girls who were quite competent but were not given any credit. Their employer instructs them to learn more about this case when they both arrive at work. Why did the cameraman pass away? Who brutally murdered him? At the motel, they now encounter a lab girl and feed her. Inquire about this instance. The child claims to have been killed by the cameraman. She informs the reporters. As we took the candles from his home, they appeared to have some sort of ritual or magic going on. Moreover, the cameraman's neck bore the appearance of having had someone chew his throat. They both feel concerned when they hear this and begin to wonder who could be such a cannibal, who is horrifyingly devouring people in this way. Shortly that, we see Sandra, a young woman who was practicing yoga, walking towards her car. Several people arrive and were about to leave while robbing her automobile as she begins to sit in it. But someone was in Sandra's automobile when they fled after stealing her vehicle, who kills them after brutally beating them. Sandra is startled by this and then spots someone behind her car, but as people swarm around them, the man who had been standing behind her car leaves the area. Who could be such a strong person? Sandra wondered now. Who murdered so many individuals by themselves? The following morning, the two journalists attend a press conference where they question the police about their murderers. Don't worry, the cops say, we'll catch the murderer quickly. Are those homicides carried out by the same person? The reporter queries the officer. The police responds that the same guy was responsible for the murders that happened next to the car. Why was there a mark on the cameraman's neck that looked like someone had swallowed his blood? She wonders. Everyone is shocked upon hearing this question because nobody was aware of this. When the mayor who had arrived there hears this, he becomes enraged and shouts to the reporter girls that you won't attend this conference once more. She also relays this information to her employer, who will be replaced by a competent reporter who will interview us well. Thereupon their boss reprimands them severely. Also not believing her, the boss inquires, who provides them this information? She refers to our exceptional folks who work in law enforcement. Both were present at home. Why don't we write something about all these murders on our account? They reason. Who knows? Maybe we learn something. She then receives a call from a lab employee who informs them that the individuals whose DNA has been tested, except for the model girl, who was killed by the cameraman, he is the only man killing anyone. To find out where the first murder occurred, they both now proceed to the cameraman's office. They arrive and discover a box there. It was similar that the cameraman held at the start of the story, but there was no ash in the box at this point. After looking into it, they also obtained the mystical object. They realize after seeing this that magic must have been used here. After seeing the items, they assume that the cameraman is a part of a cult or other organization who has performed magic here, revives a victim, and then proceeds to murder everyone one by one. Now that they both know, they assume that no one will believe them until they can provide proof. They both agree that they will gather the evidence first. For this reason, in contrast, Sandra, who was in the hospital following that tragedy, as well as her brother, arrived there. Is there any risk here? The policeman is questioned by Sandra's brother. Your sister is secure here, the cop assures you. Then, when he encounters his sister, Sandra explains to him, that evening, I came across a man who I felt would not leave me alone and would kill me. While Sandra was speaking, a man who had come to kill Sandra arrived. Her brother presents her with a cross locket. Wear it and have confidence in God, he advises, and nothing bad will happen to you. But now that he was inside, he was assaulting a security guard when another police officer heard the sound of the gunshot being fired. They arrived after a police officer who saw this shot him with a bullet. But after killing the cop, the man began drinking his blood. Nevertheless, when he approaches Sandra to kill her, he is startled by the cross locket in her neck and flees. Also, the policeman arrived, saving Sandra and sending her home, and from this we learn that man was not a regular person. Instead, he was a vampire who only emerged at night. How did he get here? Why did he arrive? The story will reveal everything to us. Then, while the girl is sitting in the car on her way home from work, Dracula appears from behind and clutches her neck. After killing her, he begins to consume her blood. The following morning, both reporters receive a call from their supervisor informing them that a new show has begun. Who will you ask for their view on who the murderer is? and they begin receiving numerous mails regarding this case, which individuals shared their opinions about why this occurred and what lay behind it, if anything. The two reporter girls pick out a few names and make an effort to get in touch with them as well. Nevertheless, Sandra's brother also brought her back home. He assures her that there are cameras here, so she need not be concerned, there will be no threat to your life. Afterwards, Sandra views the reporter's video in which she asks if anyone has any information on this case. Then tell us, please. Sandra tells her brother that I would like to speak with them as well. A woman converses with the two reporter girls there in the workplace. She claims that I read your story and that I spoke to the cameraman you named a year ago. Since at the time I had written a book on Dracula, there was a mention of a very deadly character in that book. He requested my assistance in trying to revive him, yet I refrained from telling him about it because if I had done so and assisted him, a perilous Dracula would have entered our world. Another female appears in their video at that point and adds, yes, I also know about that man, who murders people as Dracula. He killed my friend in front of me a few years ago, and I witnessed it. However, I killed him and carried his corpse to the sun. He became ashes as a result, which I sealed in a box. Nevertheless, a few days later, the box was taken. Both realized that this was Dracula, who is now killing people once more after hearing this account. And has returned. As they were both on their way home, Sandra called and told them everything that what she had personally witnessed. Both people were persuaded after hearing Sandra speak that Dracula had visited the location where Sandra had stayed. He shows there and murders Sandra's companions there. Sandra demonstrated what was happening to the two reporter girls through video call. Both of them become frightened when they witness Dracula slaughtering some people. Soon, Sandra's brother appears, having arrived to remove her from the location. Then Dracula also shows there and murders Sandra's brother there as well. He also witnessed them on the video call. Both of them become frightened upon seeing his face, and they immediately tell the police officer everything. But what have you done to make this tale famous? He asks. If so, kindly refrain from doing this, your narrative is of little benefit. She was aware that if they don't have evidence, no one will believe them. Where would that Dracula be at that time of day, she wonders. To combat him, they also create weapons for him. They receive a call from a man asking to assist them one day. He now summons them both to his office. Why did he call them here, she queries. That man claims that our company is a dealer and that we produce and sell homes. He claims that a man once approached me and asked if I wanted a house that was completely deserted. I had given him that house, which was in a very remote location that no one should go to. She questions why you are telling us all of this. After hearing this, the man also gives the keys to both of them while remarking that perhaps the Dracula you're looking for is there. When they both finally make the decision to go there, they discover that the building is actually deserted. They start looking for evidence there, but they don't find any. They were returning for that reason when they noticed a newspaper that was from 2 weeks prior. When they see it, they wonder how the newspaper got there if no one lives nearby. They then come across a boy's dead body, along with Dracula, who grabs the boy's leg and starts attacking them. Dracula captures them as they attempt to flee and severely beats them. They resist his attempts to sucking their blood even though he tries. They assault him. Dracula frequently defeats reporters, even renders her unconscious, and the other reporter was scurrying over to her to draw blood, but she took off and arrived in the light. After that, Dracula returns to her, who had been unconscious but was now awake. Dracula is then struck with a stick by the woman, knocking him out. He turned back into ash when they pulled him outside and placed him in the sun. Following that, we learn that the story was published a few days later with both reporters injured and no one believing them. They both decide to quit the press because of what they did to Dracula. And they marry and begin a far-off lifestyle. We see a young girl presenting a woman with some of Dracula's ashes at the conclusion of the narrative. Her nails appeared to be very long, as if she were also Dracula. Like the photographer had mixed the girl's blood with the ashes and brought her to life, but Dracula killed him as he emerged. Then, both reporters bravely killed Dracula, but as long as his ashes remain in this world, then, for his own gain, someone will put the girl's blood in it to revive him, and Dracula will return to annihilate the world once more.